I can be queer and also celebrate Palestine. No, you fucking can't. F*** off.
It's like, women think this.
Oh, really?
Blacks say this. Really? They don't even exist. The LGBT community. Take me to your leader. Come on. And it's why, as I say, you can always predict exactly who is going to latch onto the latest claim. When, for instance, the big bearded man with male genitalia wins the women's weightlifting competition, you can predict with 100% accuracy who is going to say, yeah, what's the problem with that?
Love him or hate him, Douglas Murray is an intellectual force that's impossible to ignore. His critique and unfiltered language have made him one of the most controversial figures in modern history. While his words offend many,
so why don't you shut up for a second?
Others cheer him on for his factual correctness. For the next 9 minutes, you'll witness Douglas Murray's most audacious takedowns of woke culture, starting with the time when a woke activist tried to silence him during a debate. And needless to say, it backfired on her. Watch closely.
This issue came up with this pop singer Sam Smith, who described himself as non-binary. And I got into a certain amount of trouble that didn't bother me, but because I said I don't think there's any such thing, or at least no one's explained what it is sufficiently for me to agree to it. I would think that if you went out to the general public and said, do you think there are people who are non-binary, and if so, can you say what they are? You'd get a fragment of 1% of people able to say that.
Murray's statement was huge fuel for this feminist, so watch her spring into action.
Why does Sam Smith, or anybody else who considers himself non-binary, needs permission from whoever? All that is up to us is to say, if this is important to you, and it does not affect me in any type of way, in any type of negative way, I'm going to respect that.
He himself said, I don't know what it means to be non-binary.
So
my suggestion was he should go away and think about it. And in the meantime, we shouldn't all mutilate the language to fit around him.
Murray came up with a simple yet very effective response, not only defending himself and his arguments, but also going into the offence. However, we know that feminists don't like simple facts. Because she wasn't finished yet, as a modern-age feminist, she had to pull off the victim card, using an analogy of respect.
Why? If I come on this stage and I say to you, I would prefer for you to call me Mr. Simons, why is it a problem to you to just give me that respect?
But well, I'm afraid that because I care about the language, I didn't particularly want to say they was very good in their performance last night. The general public are deeply concerned about being dismissed as transphobes when you're talking about how you deal with children. And that isn't a small concern. It's not just about pronouns. It's a legitimate concern of the general public about the well-being of children.
By using common sense and using self-evident arguments, he dismissed her whole concept of respecting somebody for using made-up pronouns and using wrong grammar. But Douglas Murray wasn't done dropping bombshells. In a podcast published with Douglas Murray, he fearlessly speaks out about the LGBTQ+ agenda and says what many of us think, but few dare say, they are mentally ill. And I guarantee you this will also give you a good laughter.
How do you think Gays for Gaza will get on long term? Well, the joke at the moment is that there aren't enough tall buildings in Gaza to throw Gays for Gaza off. But these people are, I've said very often, they're part of the same phenomenon as turkeys for Christmas and chickens for KFC. I'm fed up with these fringe idiot cases. They're so mentally defective, these people, and incredibly narcissistic. I can be queer and also celebrate Palestine. No, you fucking can't. Cough. Just. I can both argue for a two-state solution and also celebrate queerness and also not let myself down. No, you can't. No, you can't. You can't do all those things. At some point, you've got to choose.
What does reproductive justice mean? Free Palestine. What does that even mean? There's 5 people holding this thing. It's massive.
But Douglas Murray was not finished yet. In fact, he was just warming up for his battle against woke culture, and it was far from over. Up next, he makes a very clear and important statement. Common sense is transphobia.
Yes, transphobic is one of those words you have to be really careful with, like gender-affirming care or gender-affirming surgery or trans kids. A lot of language is being smuggled past us at the moment that means really something else. In the case of this appalling, disreputable website Vice, it's a real muckraker of an organization. It started off as quite fun many years ago and has become completely woke and unreadable. The correspondent who wrote this used to actually be the so-called LGBTQIA+ correspondent for the BBC, until the BBC realized that actually this wasn't having a correspondent writing about gay issues, it was actually having a sort of ambassador within the organization. So he's now retreated to Vice, and he continues his campaign, and that's what it is. It's a campaign. This isn't journalism. And on this occasion, his pro-trans campaign and pro-transing of kids and everyone else campaign has ended up with this desperate attack to pretend that what you quite rightly described as common sense is in actual fact transphobic.
But here's where it gets wild. All these opinions and perspectives that we've once viewed as normal and common sense are now considered transphobic. As we already saw through several examples in this video, most news agencies push these claims of the LGBTQ community extremely.
And of course it's no such thing. This document says quite rightly that there will be some people who have gender-critical views. That's what we all used to till quite recently, again, common sense. But this piece sort of says how can a trans person in the civil service possibly coexist with somebody who, quote, denies my identity? Well, they don't. They just have a different opinion from you, love.
Here, Murray also hits another important point. The LGBTQ community always demands respect and tolerance. However, they seem to show tolerance to everyone, except for straight people just trying to live their lives. Throughout this video, Douglas Murray has portrayed himself as a strong opponent of the woke culture and destroyed every one of his opponents in debates. However, in the end, he made another controversial point.
Are men more competent than women in certain areas? Are women more competent than men in certain areas? Or have we, just for convenience for the time being, landed, for instance, in this strange place I think we're in, where we have to pretend that women are exactly the same as men and also magically better? We're very uncertain about this. We tend to be totally certain. We're very uncertain. Race, absolute mess, which we've been trying to think about and deal with as well as we can, but there's a whole load of hell waiting for us if we keep leaning on it this hard. And then trans, which we know almost nothing about, and our societies are pretending to be incredibly certain about. And if I can sum up the problem in this in a sentence, it is that this new morality we're trying to construct relies on us pretending we know about things that we don't know about, trans, and simultaneously demands that we pretend not to know about things that we all knew till yesterday. Relations between the sexes.
Think about the last sentences he said. They're trying to change the norms, and not for the better.